And then finally, in dealing with life's whitewater, you need to have this attitude that this too shall pass. I have to tell you that my heart was beating pretty fast when we came to this set of rapids on the Chattooga. This was way back before we had Fitbit watches. Now, I'm not wearing one today, but most of the time I wear one because I like to see what my heartbeat is doing, you know. I noticed that when I go to the mall with my wife, the Fitbit gets heartbeat goes high. Anyway. But I got to tell you, my heart was beating fast on this trip. And I like to think that I have reasonable control over most of the things in my life. But sometimes the river of life has a mind of its own. Now, the familiar phrase, "this too shall pass," is not in the Bible. It's one of those phrases that sounds biblical, like Benjamin Franklin's "God helps those who help themselves." It's not the Bible. Sounds good, though. But there is a sense of peace which it conveys that matches biblical truths. The New Testament speaks of a great reversal which will one day come. Things will not always be the way that they are. Jesus spoke of that when he said, "Many who are first will be last, and last will be first." And in Psalms chapter 30, verse 5, "Weeping may endure for a night, but joy comes in the morning." Things will not always stay the same. This too shall pass. You see, the truth of the matter is that most of our experience with life's whitewater is short-lived. Whatever you may be dealing with now will eventually pass. Even death itself will pass. Jesus said, "I am the resurrection and the life, and those who believe in me, even though they die, will live." Apostle Paul, with his eye on the future and redemption promised by God, said, "I consider that the sufferings of this present time are not worth comparing with the glory about to be revealed to us." And then to the early Christians at Corinth, Paul says, "For this slight momentary affliction is preparing us for an eternal weight of glory beyond all measure, because we look not at what can be seen, but at what cannot be seen. For what can be seen is temporary, but what cannot be seen is eternal." You can't tell from the picture, but eventually our whitewater experience came to an end. And the disciples' scary boat ride came to an end as well. So what does this passage say to us? What can we learn? Well, you notice in the picture that we don't have our paddles in the water. The reason was that the river guide told us that as we entered the rapids to let him steer the course. He knew the rapids and he knew how to negotiate the rapids because he's done this many times before. In a sense, he was saying, "Trust me. Commit to me to get you through." If we had gotten involved, we may have turned the raft sideways, which would have been a disaster. And so we trusted him to get us through safe and sound. Jesus is in our boat, so to speak. He's there to get us through. We just need to trust him. I'm wondering, in the midst of some situation, some difficulty that you may be dealing with, can you commit your life to him? The disciples learned that he's powerful enough to get them through the storms of life. I'm wondering this morning if you've experienced that. Some years ago, I read the story of Bethany Hamilton, who learned how to deal with life's whitewater. And Bethany Hamilton did just that. You see, the word for commit is actually a banking term. It means to deposit something for safekeeping. Well, that's what we're to do with our lives when we go through times of suffering. Deposit your life in God's bank, so to speak, for safekeeping. Trust Him to preserve you in the fire. Give yourself to the Lord by continuing to do good. One time, Bethany Hamilton was ranked as the #1 amateur teen surfer in Hawaii. Then one day she lost an arm to a tiger shark. But she never lost her faith. Soon after the attack, she began to raise money to restore a man's eyesight. While visiting New York City, she gave her ski coat to a homeless girl, and when asked about the gift, she said that she had more than she needed in life. At the time, her pastor said about her, she's looking forward to the future. She's asking herself, how can I show the world I still have a life, that I enjoy my life, and that my life is filled with joy? He said she has an underlying trust that God cares for her. Bethany Hamilton entrusted herself to her faithful Creator. She didn't quit living when she lost her arm, no. She gave her life to God. She deposited her life for safekeeping into His hands. And now God has given her an international platform from which to share her story and bring Him glory. Bethany Hamilton returned to surfing. And just over a year after the shark attack, she took first place in the Explorer Women's Division of the National Scholastic Surfing Association's National Championships, winning her first national title. Since then, she's turned pro. And you might remember that they made a major motion picture about her life. It was released some time ago. It was called Soul, S-O-U-L, Surfing. God is using it to bring hope to people all over the world. Life's Whitewater giving you a rough ride these days? Remember, you're not alone. Because Jesus is in the boat with you. Hold on to Jesus. Commit yourself, your life, to His keeping. Because He cares for you. Remember this. This too shall pass. Bow your heads with me. Our Heavenly Father, we thank you so much for the fact that we're not alone. That you are with us always, even in the times when we might doubt that. Lord, increase our faith so that in life's whitewater we won't panic, but know that no matter what happens, you're there with us. And Lord, give us endurance because we know that this too shall pass. Father, bless these truths to our hearts. And we'll be careful to give you the praise and the glory. It's in Jesus' name we pray.